Welcome back, guys. I decided to change it up a little bit for you today. So I figured we're a week in, and I'll tell you, it has not been easy to research and film and edit these videos and get them out every day, and at the same time go to work and eat and sleep and do all the normal things that I have to do. But hey, I'm here. That's my problem, not yours. So I'm really excited to share this deck that I'm going to open with you. It's not actually going to be unboxed. It's just going to be unbagged, and it is still sealed. And that's because this was actually a gift from one of my students. So sometimes my students or other people have given me tarot cards, and they're probably wondering, hey, Naha, did you ever use that deck that I gave you? Did you ever even open it? So, everything in its time, everything in its moment. I'm going to cherish them forever, so I've let them sit and they're ready for me now. I'll tell you, the deck that I read with, which a couple of you have asked about, so I will make a video on it. That deck sat in my altar for at least a year. I want to say maybe like a year and a half before I even cracked the box, because, I don't know, sometimes things just need to marinate. So this is called the Mountain Dream Tarot. And I'll show you what's in here with the cards. There's this little printout. And so I saw this. It says, A Journey Through the Tarot, B. Nettles. She is the creator of this deck. And for a second I thought B. Nettles, it almost sounds like a pen name or something. No, this is this woman's actual name. And so I looked at this. I said, okay, this is a photographic deck. Cool. I've seen a few of those lately. There's been a lot of these kind of vintage looking photographic decks coming out. I'm thinking of the Stretch Tarot, the Antiquarian Tarot. A few of those I made videos about. And then we have some other photographic collage type decks like Serpent Fire, Moonchild, and Starchild that I just opened. And then as I'm looking at this, it says, the exhibition career of B. Nettles began in 1970 in photography and sculpture at the Museum of Modern Art in New York. And I realized then, this isn't a new deck. This isn't a vintagey looking deck. This is an actual deck from the 70s. And so I thought that's very, very cool. It really would have served as an inspiration to all of these photographic decks that have come after it. And so when I'm researching, I try not to make online my first go-to. Rather, these days I look at this book, which is the Encyclopedia of the Tarot, and it is in here. So we see Mountain Tarot on page 264, and you can see it here. There's a bunch of the photographs. So it doesn't give you too much about the creation of this deck. Most of what is written in here is just describing the imagery of the cards, and there are some interesting things here. For instance, it says that the Emperor is the photographer's father. That's kind of cool. But most of this is just talking about what is on the actual card, which you can look right at it and see for yourself. I do see here, though, it says, the Eight of Swords depicts the photographer B. Nettles blindfolded and bound with a cord. So we'll take a look at that one when we open the cards. So I wasn't getting too much from that. So the next thing that I did was I looked on Eclectic Tarot. I shared that website with you guys before, and I found a review on there. This review came from Truthshare. It was a really great review, and it's explained a little bit more about how B. Nettles lives in Asheville, North Carolina, an area of the Blue Ridge Mountains, and had created this deck after she'd had a dream. And this reviewer actually lives in that area or had grown up in that area, so really was able to connect with this deck deeply because of the imagery and that was photographed there. So then I was thinking, well, how did this person find out? Let me go a little bit deeper, and I found a video interview with her. Now this is where it gets good. I'm gonna link this video down below because it's only like a 3-minute video, but it shows the photographer, the artist, the creator of this deck. And what she said is that back in 1970, she got her hands on a book, and that book happened to be the Pictorial Key to the Tarot. I have my copy here, but she has an old, cool hardcover copy. I mean, it's like this thick. And so she said that she had this book and she was fascinated by the images of the cards. Now, a lot of you are going to be familiar with this book because this is one that obviously is a companion book to the deck that everybody has, the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, the deck many people start with or many people eventually come around to. And this is also something that's sometimes packaged along with the deck. If you get the sort of deluxe edition, you get this. But then people will read this and oftentimes find, oh, this is not really, it's kind of arcane, it's not necessarily useful for somebody who's brand new to the tarot, doesn't know anything. It's very esoteric, and again, it does the same thing that the encyclopedia does, which is basically just describe a lot of what you're looking at. Here's Two of Wands, and the entry starts this way. A tall man looks from a battlemented roof over sea and shore. He holds a globe in his right hand, while a staff in his left rests on the battlement. Another is fixed in a ring. The rose and cross and lily should be noticed on the left side. So he's basically just describing what the picture is, and then there's some meanings here. And this one says, between the alternative readings, there is no marriage possible. On the one hand, riches, fortune, magnificence. On the other, physical suffering, disease, chagrin, sadness, mortification. Here's where somebody who's brand new to the tarot is probably going to throw this book down and go, what the hell am I getting myself into? Like, chagrin. So anyway, this is not necessarily a book that I'm going to recommend to anybody who's trying to learn the tarot. It's something, I guess, great to have if you are a student of esoteric things, and not necessarily going to be the most useful for you until you've delved a little bit deeper on your own. However, B had her copy of this book, and guess what? She didn't have a deck. She just had the book, but the book had the images in it. It had each of the cards, just black and white. And so she decided to make a self-portrait of herself. And she took a picture of herself as what she calls the Queen of Stars. And by saying that, she meant the Queen of Pentacles. So before I tell you any more, let's just go ahead and start looking at these. And we'll take a look at this too. Usually I say keep the knives out of the bedroom, but we'll make an exception here. And this title card says a deck of 78 photographic cards, 2012. So she started with that one card. And at the time, she was going to school. And she had gone there originally to study printmaking and then got into photography. And she ended up having a dream. And in this dream, she came up with the idea to begin making this deck. And she said the next morning that she woke up and started asking her friends and people that she knew to be models for her tarot deck. And she based it off of the images in the Pictorial Key. So here we have the Magician. And there's very, very light coloring. These photographs were actually hand colored. This is supposedly the first photographic tarot deck. And now there's so many, as I said earlier, some of the ones that I've seen. So this is before Photoshop, before any digital adjustments could be made. So this is all just done either through setting things up or in the dark room. There's the High Priestess with the moon down below her. And she talks about how some of these cards had to be two images that were superimposed, two negatives that were laid over each other. So those photographic tricks. I remember my great uncle, he used to have a dark room down in his basement, and I always thought that that was such a cool thing. Here's the Emperor, that must be her dad. These are neat, right? Oh, he's intense. So she said she never made a conscious decision to make this deck. She had the dream, woke up the next day, started asking people to model for her. So she asked her friends, as I said, and other students. This is one of the cards which she shows that, then she says that it has like 5 different things that were overlaid over the top of each other. So this was one that was more complex, the Lovers. And we can tell this is the 70s. Look at that haircut, right? So again, not created by cut and paste collage, but actually just done through the talents of photography. I really dig this one, Strength. I saw this in the book. The big dog there rather than the lion. Oh, this is a cool hermit. And so again, very subtly colored. So after I watched this short little video on her, then I ended up just looking and seeing, well, my question was, is this woman still around? Is she still alive? What is she doing now? And so I ended up finding her website, and it's easy, bnettles.com. And it turns out that she is a very prolific photographer. She has all kinds of books out and things she's made over the years, and her work has been shown all over the world, Tokyo, Paris, Amsterdam, you name it. So very much beyond the tarot. Now, there's plenty of things that are available. Oh, I think she mentioned that the Hanged Man was her brother. she has other things available for sale on her website. You can buy the deck there. You can even buy the original tarot deck. It is $2,000, and it says, email me for more information. But can you imagine? Oh, so in this video where she's talking about it, she shows the original tarot deck. This is very cool. I really like that Temperance. And she has the original photographs, and they're hand colored, and then she said that they're stitched between 2 pages of frosted mylar, and the deck is like that thick. It's very, very cool. There's the devil. You really can see that she tried to recreate the images of Rider-Waite, but then also made them her own. And I know that the encyclopedia said that she did this over the period of 4 years, but in her video she says that it actually took her 5 years to do it, because, you know, it's a lot of work to lay all these things over. This is such a beautiful image. I love that. The star. Another thing that I saw on her website that I just thought was kind of a cool artifact, she had this thing that was called the 14 Mysteries. It was like an accordion folded print, and every page had a key that was like an old-fashioned key. And she said that they had found these keys in the house that they'd moved into decades ago. And so she made this kind of like cool art piece out of it. There's the sun. They're special, aren't they? And so this deck has been reissued, probably a few times over. There's the World. And there's the Fool. So we'll go ahead and take a look at some of the minors. Oh, here's another little info card. And here it says, in 1975, which is when this deck first was published, 900 offset decks were made. In 2001, the second version was produced with 1,000 decks. As with the first decks, the cards were monochromatic and use a different tint for every suit. I'll show you here. There's the King, kind of this pinky sort of mauve-y color. The Wands have a green tint to them. The Pentacles, or stars as she calls them, are blue. It looks like the swords are blue, and a darker blue, and then the Pentacles are kind of this light blue. Match my walls. So, as I said, she went to the Penland School, and she then returned many times over the years, returned to teach summer courses on photography, and continues to work. She's got a book called Light and Lens, Photography in the Digital Age, that's in its 3rd edition. Look at that 10 of Cups. That's cool, right? Oh, the 9 of Cups. Well, I like this a lot better than what Waite did with it. Look at this guy. All right, I'm feeling it. There's the 8. Really a masterpiece. The little kids on the 6. The 5 with the cups spilled over. Oh, this is another one that she mentioned was a difficult one to make, because there was this hand. This wasn't just somebody standing out of the frame. This was actually another piece that came in. Now, my only experience with the darkroom is back when I was in high school, and I'd get detention once in a while, being late for class. Sometimes that was for my art class. Gorgeous ace. I love that. My art teacher was also the photography teacher, and so my detention would be that I had to go mix the photochemicals, and if those of you who know, photochemicals are extremely stinky and toxic, and yeah, that was definitely a good punishment. All right, so here are the court cards of swords. We're kind of going backwards here, but yeah, there's the 10 of swords. There's the 9. This must be her. That's the 8 of swords, where she's bound. Wow. What's very cool about this is it is reminiscent of these other decks that are more recent, and at the same time, some of those decks that have these old vintage photographs, you know that the person who made the deck, they're just using photographs that speak to them, but not necessarily ones where they know the people at all. They're just using vintage photos. These are actually all people that this artist, this photographer knew, which I find really fascinating. Oh, I like that. I like how it's all different styles of swords, right? I guess she had to go around saying, anybody have a sword that I can borrow? Does this look like the guy from Harry Potter? Is that what I'm thinking of? And there's the samurai sword. I have a sword like that. King of Wands, sitting out on his throne out in nature. There's the Queen. And I guess she found somebody there in the mountains that had a horse. I guess if you do need a horse to photograph for your deck, the Blue Ridge Mountains might be a good place to be. The Ten of Course. I am so falling in love with these already, and of course I'm looking at them sort of through the lens as I'm showing them to you guys, but I can't wait to really sit and spend some time with these. I feel like we saw this guy in one of the other cards, and that's one of the things I like about the Rider deck, is that the same person, if you look at the characters in the Rider-Waite deck and you look closely, you will see that the same characters are used. And sometimes, I mean, a few of those, it took me years before I noticed that. For instance, take a look sometime at the Six of Pentacles, and that guy comes up in another card. I'm not going to tell you which one. I'll let you discover it for yourself. But sometimes in my tarot class, my students are surprised to see that that guy actually shows up in another card. And if you have any other ideas about connections that you've made with two cards because you see somebody similar, they're dressed similar, leave that down in the comments below. I am always fascinated. I learned a lot. I mean, that's the thing about tarot. It doesn't matter how many times you've looked at the cards, how many times you've done readings. Every single time I teach my tarot course, and it's been literally, I don't know, I've taught that course 20 times at least. And every time one of my students or multiple of my students will point out to me something I've never seen before. Now here is the card that started it all. Queen of Stars. She even talks about going to the thrift store and finding this black taffeta dress that had little stars all over it. So she took that as a self-portrait, and that's how she began creating this deck. There's the Knight. Now we see the 10 here, and she's even got the two dogs in the picture. We are missing that older figure. So I guess maybe we can imagine that we're that older figure looking through the eyes. I'm not really sure how I feel about the back of these cards. It's definitely not my favorite. It seems kind of strange. It's almost like a chaos star, isn't it? And kind of digital. So I would imagine this isn't the original back of the cards. And it's something that's strange. Sometimes the artists just don't seem to think too much about the back of the cards. And then other times the back of the cards are beautiful. I think that Luminous deck that I opened up a few episodes back, it's got to be one of the most beautiful back of cards that I've seen. But that's okay. You know, think about, would a photographer be thinking about what's on the back of the photo? Probably not, right? All right, there's the 5 going past the window. And just imagine, you know, a project like this taking 5 years. I mean, there's something to be said for commitment. And let's go ahead and end with this one, the Ace. Wow, wonderful. Now, there's no accompanying meanings for the cards because the cards are just their classic depictions. I suppose that she imagined that you could use any book on the Rider-Waite Tarot in order to find some meanings, or that you could just sit with the cards in the same way that she came to the understanding that she was going to make a deck through a dream that she had, through going to sleep and then waking up and just saying, I know I'm going to start making a deck. So it's pretty inspiring, isn't it? Well, once again, this has been such a fun thing to be able to share this with you. And I will make sure and leave all this information down below where you can get this deck. And you just, if you're going to order it right from her. Order it from her website. It is still available. And I'm also going to be making a video here coming up where I compile all the questions you guys have been asking over the last few videos down in the comments, or sending them to me on Facebook or on Instagram. Make sure you're following on Instagram if you're not already, because that's where I do giveaways, and there's a lot more stuff, and I'm also posting behind the scenes stuff over there. But I'm going to make a video where I answer you guys' questions. So if you still have questions that you would like me to answer about decks, about things related to tarot, go ahead and leave those in the comments, and that'll be coming up here in the next couple of days. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye.